it's just so important to evangelize the youth. I think that it's very important for us as Christians to be representatives of the true church and live out a Christian lifestyle every single day. Live your life for Christ and live the life that Christ would want us to live, because Christ did not want us to just pick and choose what we wanted to believe or how we want to practice our beliefs, but he laid it out very clear in Scripture. Evil will never overcome this church. The church is one. Know that the church is true. It's visible. It's still around. It's apostolic, and that it's holy. And we learn this through Scripture.
Welcome back to the Terry and Jesse Show. I like to say I'm too blessed to be stressed. I'm too anointed to be disappointed. And if hope was money, I'd be a billionaire. I want to welcome Julia Baloney to the Terry and Jesse Show. How are you, my friend?
I'm very good. Thank you for having me.
You've got a beautiful smile. Keep it up. I want to say thank you for coming on to talk about a topic that actually this is our 5th anniversary for Virgin Most Powerful Radio. And I believe that we were moved off of different radio stations because we talked too much about communism and the evil of it. And now that we have Virgin Most Powerful Radio, nobody can tell us we can't talk enough about Fulton, about communism and the evils of it. And Bishop Fulton Sheen, you can see behind me, Julia, that we promote his work all the time. I actually went to his funeral 42 years ago when I had hair on my head. I was a young man at one time. So, yes, so we're honored to have you talk about this topic. And before we go to that, we have a section of our show that we didn't get to the first segment. We call it the segment on Fulton Sheen. So, Mr. Engineer, can you bring in the smartest guy in the room? Full Sheen ahead. Appropriately, our topic is communism, so I pulled it out of the quotable Sheen. Sheen said, communism came out of the Western civilization. It was produced out of what was putrid, foul, and rotten in the atheism and materialism of the 19th century. I just think that it was appropriate because, Julia, you've written a book, or you've got this. Tell me a little bit more. Jesse kind of let me know the last minute he couldn't make it. It's a book published by Tan Books. Is that correct?
Yes, this is Venerable Sheen's book, Communism and the Conscience of the West. Yeah. And I'm just a spokesperson for it. I didn't edit it or anything.
Yeah, I read that years ago. As a matter of fact, I have right in my hands. Are you ready? Pope Pius XI encyclical on atheistic communism. Many of the popes have written on it. And it's very important. So you're promoting this, and I really appreciate that. So let me just get started with the first question. So, Julia, what is the key idea behind the title of the book, Communism and the Conscience of the West?
So Venerable Sheen, he starts the book in the preface basically saying, every book should have one idea. And so the key idea in this book is that communism is on the conscience of the West. Mm-hmm. In other words, communism, goes full steam ahead with its foul ideas, and we can see, just the remarkable devastation that these ideas have brought through history. Yeah. But his idea was that even in a place like America, there was something about our civilization that was also materialistic or atheistic in its own way, practically atheistic and individualistic in a negative way, and also relativistic in its own masked way as well. And so even if we had not gone as far as the communists in playing out these ideas, we still had something that we needed to purify in ourselves. And so that's the idea that this system is on our conscience, and we need to fix the way that we live our lives in order to help purify the rest of the world.
Well said. And Julia, I read just recently, during the Depression time of America in the 1930s, 100,000 Americans left America to go to Russia. And they were sold a bill of goods because communism was pushing hard when we were on our face, when we were hurting with the Depression. They said, "Oh, you got to go to Russia. This is a utopia. You come here, you'll never have to worry about eating. You'll never have to worry about going to work. We'll take care of you." So it seems that when times are tough, and their times are tough right now, a lot of confusion, it seems that they're still hitting people with this idea that communism is the way to go. But I always say this, Julia, show me a country where communism is practiced and the people are treated well. There's none. So there you go. Question number 2. The Venerable SHEEN stressed that communism does not just deal with economics, but is a philosophy of life. Julia, what are some of the marks of this philosophy of life?
Yeah, so one of the marks is we have to think about communism, in terms of atheism. We have to think about Marx. Basically, SHEEN said that communism was the political expression of Marx's atheism. So the idea is Marx wanted to dethrone the gods, and he wanted to, just create this new revolutionize human nature, revolutionize everything, basically. So this is not just about economics. There's something theological going on here. The second mark I would talk about is that we're talking about a relativistic system. I kind of alluded to that earlier, but she does a great job just kind of talking about, the philosopher Hegel, who's very kind of intimidating. And he talks about him in a kind of approachable way and kind of says, okay, one of the main ideas to know is that Hegel does not believe in permanent truths or immutable principles. Basically, everything is dialectics. So everything is kind of ping-ponging off of each other, and you're kind of creating new ideas from other old ideas and coming up with a synthesis. So this is a relativistic system that Marx took from Hegel. And so that's the Marx, the fancy word for it is Marx created, he had a dialectical materialism. And so like that one half of that is just think of the idea of relativism.
Yes.
So the other half of that is the materialism. So the materialist side, Marx got that from another philosopher. And that's the idea that, we don't need to treat men as if they have souls, as if there's a heaven, there's a God, and any of that. And so these kind of 3 key ideas, the atheism, the relativism, and the materialism create a really, really toxic blend that, it's still alive with us today in different forms. It did not die just because the economic theories look outdated and kind of wacky now.
Julia, absolutely right. Look at Canada right now, 10,000 euthanasia patients. They're bragging. The doctors are bragging on the internet this week about how they've killed these people off. Look at the babies that are being murdered. Think of Russia. They were the first one to legalize abortion. I mean, if there's no God, there's no soul, anything goes. And I think that there's a lot that people don't realize that are happening right now that fits right into atheistic communism in our own country today. So that's why this book, Communism and the Conscience of the West by Archbishop Fulton Sheen, is something everyone should get. The way to get that is to go to tanbooks.com and pick it up. As a matter of fact, I thought I got an email from Tan showing me all of Fulton Sheen's books that you've published at Tan. There's several of them. So I would just say, get anything you can on 2 people, Archbishop Sheen and Pope Benedict XVI. Those 2 guys are on the same page, and I'm sure someday both of them will be canonized someday. At least that's my wish. Yeah, it's also included in the show notes. Good. All right, quick, next question. What is the relationship between communism and atheism? You touched a little bit on that. And how does communism present itself as a kind of counterfeit, secularized form of Christianity? Wow, that's a great question with liberation theology. Go ahead, I'm all ears. I can't wait to hear your answer on that.
Yeah, Sheen is so penetrating when he talks about this topic, because he kind of has this chart where he talks about, okay, so in Christianity, you have the idea of, the sacrifice, and that's, he calls it the condition of spiritual union with God. And then in communism, you have the idea of class struggle and violence, the condition of a classless society. So that idea of sacrifice gets twisted into something, completely different.